Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in today and listening to another one of our primary care podcasts. Today we have a fantastic special guest. We've got Mandeep. Mandeep is a UK trained GP and is currently taking the journey to move over into Australia. So we are going to run through his current role and his background, but also obviously his motives and as he's preparing for the move, everything that he's looking into and what he's had to do. So I think today's going to be a really good episode, and obviously hopefully our listeners will get an awful lot about it. Awesome. So Mandeep, we'll jump straight in, and I guess obviously just talk to us a little bit. Tell us a little bit around obviously who you are and your kind of clinical background.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'm really happy to be here. It's always great to have a chat with you, Thomas. And, we're doing it first time on a podcast in front of a screen, but, it's still, I enjoy having a chat with you. So it's great. So talking a little bit about myself, I'm a UK trained GP, currently, in the process of moving to Australia, which, Thomas, you've, very kindly kind of facilitated the whole thing, and I'm really grateful for that. I finished my training, so I got my CCT last year around October time, and I've been working as a salaried GP in West Yorkshire. And we started this process maybe a few months ago now. I think it's been a few months, so far things are going on schedule, bar a few hiccups, and which was to be expected, but it was nothing from our side. It was just a process. Sometimes it takes longer. Maybe we'll delve a little bit deeper into that. But overall, things have been going smooth, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. And Mandeep, just for our listeners, when was the first time that you actually started thinking that Australia might be a good option for you, or for yourself and Kanchan, I suppose?
Yeah, actually, it's not just me. My wife, who is also a GP Kanchan, we both are moving to Australia together. So the idea of moving was, yes, because it's always been in the last few years, at least, with how the job market in the UK is going. Even when I was in training, there was lots of noise around, lots of my colleagues moving to Australia or even thinking about moving. So it has always been on the back of my mind. Maybe that would be an option, but it was not something that was realistically considering until recently. I would say, even going a couple of years back, it was always like a viable option. But the more kind of around the end of my training, where it was time to look for jobs, I was luckily able to secure a job before I completed my training, so it was all fine. But while I was in the process, and the job market is really dire at the moment, to be honest, in UK. So that had kind of triggered me to look into it. I got the job, so for another 6-10 months, I didn't think much about it, but there were lots of other factors for me personally, which helped me make this decision. My family, so my sister lives in Australia. She's been there for many years, and it was a chance to reunite with my family as well. And with I'm an international medical graduate on a visa in the UK, and the visa situation has kind of changed recently, and that meant maybe my residency status in the UK, it would take longer for me to get a permanent residency. So all of those things played a role. But above all, just kind of looking into what Australia offers as in terms of work, in terms of life outside of work. I don't need to say about the weather. So, there are lots of those factors which kind of made the decision very easy once I started looking into it.
Yeah. I remember one of our first kind of initial conversations that we had, and obviously we were running through some of your motives, and as you say, you were talking about the current pressures, in the NHS, that workload, that kind of burnout that I think a lot of GPs are currently experiencing. There was that desire for better work-life balance, and as you say, there was that family side of that family ties that you had there, but also that the financials. I think obviously this is one of those things which you've kind of been quite shocked at is actually the better lifestyle that you get, the better work-life balance that you get, but just how much more money at the same time
Yes.
can be made.
Mhm.
I think obviously that this movie is well, I can confidently say from other GPs that I place, this movie is certainly going to tick all those boxes for you, and I honestly think that it's going to be the right decision for you and the family.
Absolutely, and I think we've talked about this many times, within ourselves as well. One of the things I remember is when we did the interview, when we were doing interviews for the job in Australia, and the whole interview process, it was shocking in a good way, where it was all about how. And I'm not saying, the employers in the UK are not good. They are amazing, especially my employer at the moment. They are amazing. But the whole point of view of how can they or help, or how important it is to have that good work life balance
Yeah,
while maintaining that financial stability, and kind of everyone, the employer, the employees, everyone working towards that goal. That was eye opening. That was shocking in a very good way, and I was amazed. I knew that the money was going to be more than in the UK, but beyond that, I think just that interview, and you were there as well, so I'm sure you can share a little bit about that.
yeah,
It was an amazing experience.
yeah. The company that you've joined, and we won't name any names, but the company that you have joined, are absolutely fantastic. They are all about trying to support you, and this is the same with all the clients that we work with. They all want to obviously try and support you. It's working collectively as that kind of team that you've mentioned, and it's all about how can you actually deliver the care, but also have that work-life balance, actually have that lifestyle that you want. I think in the UK there's so many people that they go through the training because they want to help people and it's the job that they want, and then when they
Mhm.
start work, they're not having as good of an experience as actually you are,
True.
in your current work. And yeah, it's a shame. It's very, very sad to see that there's so many people that are just unhappy, and
Yeah,
it comes from
and
so
I,
many different
I,
factors.
I
Yeah,
would say in the UK, a lot of the time, the employers, the GP practices, their hands are tied because they work within a system where
yeah,
it's severely restrained budgets, and all of those issues. That's in the background. But as you said, the whole focus is trying to help people as a doctor, trying to take care of people. But it is great to know that the employer is there as a backup to kind of take care of you, and there. So you're taking care of people, and the employer is there to kind of safeguard you and take care of you and talk to you about how to achieve financial stability, good work-life balance, and all of that.
yeah,
And I feel even before I've not started yet, and I don't think I'm going to change my opinion much when I go there, because
yeah,
from other people who have been there, I've heard the same thing, and it looks to be really amazing. I'm really looking forward to it.
yeah, yeah. I think just kind of touching on that partnership side of things that we just mentioned about again, that is what the move is, isn't it? And that's what the relationship is. It's not like you are an employee; you are a contractor within the business. You are having that partnership with the business where you are heard. You are listened to, and ultimately the more that you do, it's better for them. So it's very much similar to that kind of private sector from that side of things in the UK,
Yes,
but it's a lot more rewarding over in Australia. And I
true.
know we probably touched on it a little bit, already, but a keen question that I kind of had for you was what was your biggest motivator? What was the biggest driving force about this decision?
If I had to name one, I think we've touched on it, and I talked about a few things. I think if I had to pick one, it would be work-life balance. I would say that would be on the top of my list, because it is not impossible to maintain work life balance in the UK. I'm not saying that at all, but it is a lot easier
Yeah.
in Australia, is what I would say. And plus, my family being there, it was a huge factor.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess obviously, another thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was, was there kind of any moment, like I say, I know that we had spoken for a little while, then we'd obviously kind of started exploring, obviously, different jobs. And I think we must have had, multiple different conversations going through the stages. I always kind of call it, kind of this funnel filter, really,
Hmm.
because we started just by talking about Australia and why you wanted to move. And then as things kind of gradually progressed, obviously, with yourself and Kanchan, we kind of got to this point where you guys were like, yep, you know what, we're ready.
Hmm.
What was that decision making?
There were a couple of things. So when we started the chat, initially, we were talking about more about overall on trying to understand what the pathway is and what actually it is like, because sometimes when you go through like websites and videos and all of that, a lot of them are very informative, but you can, unless you have that human touch, speak to someone who is doing this, and you can explain to you like your question that can sometimes be individual issues rather than something that can be covered in an article or a blog. It is a bit confusing, so having that chat with you initially kind of opened the door for us to kind of understand get the whole picture. And I remember you sent us it was like a presentation, I think, where there were different, like, step 1, 2, 3, 4 in the form of slides.
Yeah.
And over the weekend, both Kanchan and I, we went through that, and kind of, I think we started picturing, okay, how it is going to be, what's it going to be like, what's the timeline going to be like, the logistics of it. We have a little one. What is the right time to move? All of that. And while this was happening on the background, my visa situation in the UK, it changed in a way that I had to wait a lot longer to get my residency here, and I was not ready to wait that long. That kind of then, well, I would say that was the single biggest turning point. And while that was happening, talking to my sister who lives in Australia and who has literally been biting my ear off saying how amazing Australia is, that was kind of, she was gradually turning my head as well. And I think it's a combination of all of that. If I had to pick one single turning point, it was when I understood that the visa situation in the UK is going to be a bit challenging. Not that I had to leave UK, but I just had to wait a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. And it's lovely, some of the things you just said there as well. It's nice to hear that I kind of played a bit of a part in that, by just obviously being able to kind of explain the process to you. And like I always said to you, this was never a case of us trying to tell you where to go or me trying to tell you where you need to go, what you need to do. It was always about, let's do what's right by you. And if it's going to be the right decision, then fantastic. If it's not, then that's also fine. And
just wanted to add something on that, on our initial conversation. I don't know. I don't think I've shared this with you. First time, I think I sent a message on LinkedIn, or I got in touch somehow, and then you'd given me a ring. I think I was in my morning clinic, couldn't pick up. You rang me later, and I was going to go down to the village where I work to get some lunch, and I was just parked my car, and I was about to get out. You gave me a ring, and I was just speaking hands free, and I think we talked about 20 minutes at that time, and you walked me through everything. You started with what my ideas of what ideas. So we do this in medicine. When we are talking to our patients, we say, I'm asking the patients their ideas, their concerns, their expectations, and trying to kind of tailor your pitch or your management plan or whatever it is in line with that. And I think you did that. You understood what I already knew about the pathway. You asked about what my expectations were, what my timelines were like, and that 20 minutes almost, and you were the first and the only person I spoke to in the whole process, because after that 20, and I've told you this before, so I spoke to you for 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm going with Thomas, because when the thing that I appreciated the most was you gave me a realistic timeline, and which was because I've heard or not heard but read on social media or like some websites. I won't name which, but you can migrate in 3 months to Australia. You start the process today, in 3 months you're in Australia, which didn't sound realistic to me. But when it's in a website which looks official, you're like, okay, maybe that's the case. But when I spoke to you, I said as soon as possible, and you said let's kind of let's aim for that, but realistically, probably it's going to be 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So, appreciated that, because at that point, even if I had said 4 months, I wouldn't have known, or 2 years for that matter, I wouldn't have known. But
Yeah.
you give me an honest advice and kind of give me a realistic ideas. You told me that the APRA registration process, they are going to be lots of back and forth, which happened, and it's sometimes going to be delayed. So all of that information, getting it right off the bat when I spoke to you for the first time, and kind of having my expectations in check, knowing what we're doing, that kind of made a big difference for me to make a decision.
Oh, lovely. So, yeah, I guess obviously, a couple more questions that I kind of really had, kind of for you. And one of the things I guess you've kind of really answered was, that you had family, you got your sister there. So, that kind of obviously is been another huge driving factor, for you. Like when you were making the decision, when you were looking into the different, provinces and, the different areas. But we also dove in an awful lot, didn't we, into the community, and the lifestyle that you guys wanted, and the needs. We looked into kind of schooling and tried to obviously align and make sure that the area was actually going to fit your requirements as well, didn't we?
Absolutely. I think that process for us was a lot simpler, because we only had one option in mind, basically. So we are going to, the state we are going to, and that was kind of decided. So it narrowed it down, but we did talk about, because it was not set in stone initially. So
Yeah.
because it would always depend upon the availability of jobs. So if the jobs were not available there, we would have gone somewhere else. So we did talk about what are our goals, not just in terms of work and money, but also lifestyle, schooling, things outside of work, and does that align our values, or our lifestyle, does it align with the area that we are thinking of, in terms of, is it a rural lifestyle that you would prefer, or closer to the city, and things like that. So we did account for all of that, and luckily the place we're going to is kind of, it does align with all of those things. So it's great.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's just an important factor that we, like you say, we did already know roughly where you wanted to go, but we were kind of obviously, trying to make sure that, yes, you're going to be close to your sister, but okay, what jobs are going to be available? What type of clients are actually going to meet both of your wants? And, you were quite specific with some of the wants that you wanted from, from a client and from an area. So, we did try and obviously align that, kind of, really, really well. And you mentioned already, you did quite a bit of research yourself prior, before kind of speaking to myself, and even while speaking to myself. And
Yes.
I remember having phone calls, late at night, going through some of this as well. And there was the time where it was a case of, are we making the right decision? Is this going to be the right client? And I guess what going into some of the doubts that you had, what kind of helped you, kind of clarify them, or kind of, kind of resolve, some of the doubts that you maybe had.
Um, so whenever I had doubts, I did my own research. I spoke with you, and because my sister had a little bit of idea of the local area, I spoke with her. So that those were like my three, areas of research, basically: feedback from yourself, my sister, and doing my own research. And I remember we were, even within the area we're looking at, there were a few places, and we had, I think, 2 or 3 chats before we finalized on one, thinking about which one is going to be the best option among those. So while doing that, it was a combination of all. And the thing that I appreciated at that time was, I didn't, at any point, we didn't feel like we were being pushed at one option. It was more dictated by what we are wanting from out of it, rather than what anyone else would think is the best option, really. So it was we didn't feel like we're pushed into let's go for this as well. It never felt like that when we said maybe we want to go with this particular employer and let's pursue this. We kind of moved in that direction. So I feel like we made the right decision in terms of what we chose, and we're well supported. And all those three sides of things, my own research, your feedback, my sister's feedback, all aligned on this particular job. So it was good.
Let's go into the part that I've always called, the fun part. The registration. Actually kind of navigating through this registration, because there were stages which were a lot easier than others, weren't there? But I guess to kind of start with, how have you found the process? The actual registration side of things. Like you say, you had our the step-by-step guide which I'd put together and shared to you, but how's yours and Conscience kind of experience with the registration?
So this is the strange bit, right? Because I think if it was just me who was doing the whole process, then I think my experience would be completely different to when both of us are doing it at the same time, and the process went completely differently for both of us. So for our listeners, the context, Kanchan got her registration within 4 weeks. So it was the smoothest process in the world, basically. Everything submitted. There was one email asking for a few documentation, which was submitted. And in 4 weeks, everything was sorted. For me, it took closer to 3 months, I think. And it was not because of any kind of issues with the document. It is just because APRA needs to have a board meeting, which only happens once a month. And I missed the last window, and the next window was a month later. So it kind of elongated the process. So the whole process, I would say, it is the form at least it feels very long. There are lots of things to put, and some of the form, because I think they have recently moved from the paper-based to digital one, a lot of the options sometimes can be a bit confusing because you have already given that information earlier and it's asked again, and can be a bit confusing. But the form can be long, but I wouldn't say it is long, and it can feel a bit time consuming and a bit confusing, but that's where Thomas comes in. So if you just give a quick ring to Thomas, hopefully not like me when I was ringing him out of hours. I'm really sorry about that. But
I always said to you that I was going to be accessible, no matter what time. I was like, as long as you don't call me whilst I'm sleeping, that's okay. If there's a waking hour in the day, you can catch me. I know the process like the back of my hand, but I do know, obviously, at the same time, just how kind of daunting it can be to kind of feel like you're trying to go through and navigate through this on your own.
Just one thing I'd like to add. I think a lot of doctors who are international medical graduates for their primary medical qualification and then have come to the UK and done their GP training, they might be looking into it as well. I'm one of them. So I was not trained in the UK as a doctor. I only did my GP training here. The process can be a little bit difficult in that case, because a lot of times it's like involving 2 or 3 countries where you have to get your your credentials verified. If you're registered in a different country, you need things like certificate of good standing from all the the authorities you are registered with. So there are lots of these small things, and preparing early. So I prepared that early, so I could, when we decided, within 2 weeks, I was able to launch the APRA application. For UK graduates, it might be a little bit simpler because everything's close to home. So, you're chasing things up, and, you can speed things up yourself. Whereas if you are, having to involve more than one country, for me, it was, documents from 3 different countries in 3 different languages and translated, then you have to notarize it. And there's some document required from a different country where they might not be checking their emails daily. So you have to ring someone and try to ask them to get it sorted. So, it can be quite anxiety inducing sometimes at times. So the earlier, once you've decided and you're going through this process, better to kind of get that checklist from Thomas and just start looking at what you can kind of tick the boxes as soon as you can, so that when you are ready to submit it, everything is in hand, which will speed up the process.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I guess, were there any kind of stages of the process, because we've jumped straight to kind of APRA, prior to that we had obviously like the ECFMG and the AMC, kind of steps to do. So there was obviously quite a few other steps that we had prior. But was there kind of anything that you kind of maybe found that was, maybe easier than you expected, or, you've mentioned obviously that the APRA at times had been a little bit more kind of challenging.
So the ECFMG, luckily for me, I had already done it a few years prior, when I was trying to do USMLE, which is a licensing exam in the US, and thankfully the same credentials work for this time, so it was a lot quicker. So it happened within a couple of days, which was amazing. For my primary medical qualification, which would have been a headache because that document then needs to go to my country of primary qualification, and that needs to be emailed back to ECFMG, which can take a few weeks. So if you are in that boat, it's better to, and once you have decided you're going to go to Australia, it's better to get it sorted. For some, if you have had a GMC registration for international qualification, then it might have already been sent through, and you can just request a report from ECFMG, which makes it a lot quicker. But if you have never had a ECFMG account, then it's better to set it up as soon as you decide, because that can take a few weeks, and sometimes more than a few weeks, because it depends upon the university or your issuing authority. And also your CCT documents, your GMC certificate, those needs to be verified. But usually the RCGP and GMC, they are, I found that they were very quick in terms of their turnaround time. Within a few days, both RCGP and GMC got back to ECFMG, and my credentials were verified. And as soon as it's verified, within a few days, they will send the report. So the whole process actually for me took less than a week, which is very quick, a lot quicker than I expected. Because I remember when we were initially talking, I think the APRA application, our timeline, we were able to bring it a month forward because we had accounted for a lot of time for ECFMG, but it was sorted within a week. The AMC portfolio is the easier bit. Once you have your ECFMG credentials verified, you need to pay the fee, set up an account, and just get the ECFMG to send all those verification to AMC, and that's sorted. That doesn't take long. So ECFMG can be tricky if you have not had it done for your primary medical qualification. So it's better to kind of get on it as soon as you decide.
I guess, was there anything that kind of through the process so far, and for our listeners, you and Guntran just had your APRA approved, and we're now moving on to the visa side of things, and gaining all the documents that we now need for the visas. But is there anything that's kind of caught you off guard that you were kind of surprised about?
From do you mean on with the visa application?
With the whole process.
With the whole process, I'm trying to think here. With the APRA registration, there were a couple of things, like, because I got my primary medical qualification from Bangladesh, but I'm not registered there anymore. But initially I was asked to provide a registration from Bangladesh and a good standing certificate, which I wouldn't be able to because I've never been registered there. So it was a bit of a headache, and caught me by surprise. I didn't know what to do. And I was quite anxious for a couple of days, but thankfully I emailed the case officer, and they accepted my explanation. So that is one of the things as well. If there is something that generally you can't produce because of a valid reason, then just first point of call would be the case officer, just emailing them and saying, look, this is the situation, and they will accept it. The other thing, I suppose, that was a bit, it caught me by surprise, was the notarization. So that is very important. There is a specific guidance from APRA on what needs to be written on the notary certificate, notarized documents, because the standard UK notary is not accepted. So there is a specific way it needs to be written. So initially I almost notarized the document in the standard UK way, but thankfully the notary asked me, what are you doing it for? And they had idea that APRA doesn't accept this. So I saved a lot of money there. Otherwise, I would have had to do all of that again. So, that was the thing that almost caught me off guard. But other than that, because I think it's different for me, because when I came to the UK, I had to go through this process in some ways with GMC. So those kind of like stumbling blocks on the way. I think I'm kind of used to it by now. The amount of times I have done this. But someone who's a UK graduate, it might feel like, oh my God, what are they asking for? Because they might ask you for a lot of documents.
So, how did you find obviously all the support that you had kind of around you, kind of behind you, that were helping you through the process?
Yeah, it was, I felt really well supported on all fronts. So that's why, I said it is a long and confusing process, but I avoided the word painful or, anything like that, because it didn't feel like that, honestly. It just felt like really long. And when it's long and you've already decided on something, you kind of want to get on with it. Mm-hmm. And because I was not able to, it was frustrating at times, but not because, I was getting stuck, because every time I felt like I was stuck, the initial reaction myself, without speaking with yourself or anyone, oh my God, now what am I going to do about this once the email comes? And then spoke to you, wrote a quick email to the case officer, and I got a reply within the next couple of days saying, okay, I will take your explanation. Instead of that, give us some other document that I can give, and that's all sorted. Everything's good. So, it was that process where I could, whenever there was worry, and on our APRA application, I had added you as my agent officially there. So all the emails that was coming to me was coming to you as well. And I really appreciated that every time the email comes, even before I had checked it, because I might be at work or it came in the middle of the night and didn't check it in the morning, you would ring me and say, oh, your case officer has emailed you today and they have asked for this. Don't worry, this happens with everyone. And that's so reassuring in that time when you think, oh my God, am I the only one in this situation, or am I the first one who has ever been in this situation? Of course not. There are lots of people who have been in the exact same situation, but it feels like that at that moment in time. But just to hear from you, who, when you have dealt with this hundreds of times, when you say, this has happened, don't worry about it. This is what we need to do. Even before I looked at the email, so I didn't even have time to worry. I already knew what we were going to do. We had a game plan. That made the world of difference. And once I emailed the case officer, they would write back quickly and they would tell me, what I can do. And it was never like, oh, you absolutely need this, we can't do anything here. There was never a reply like that. They always said, okay, if this is not possible, then let's do this. So it always felt like, not a smooth process. You like took little breaks in the middle, but it was never like anything that felt like, okay, everything is derailed. Never felt like that.
As you say, the case management we had was great, and in the background, I was able to kind of communicate with the case manager and with some of the contacts I had at APRA, and like you say, despite other than the delay, which was kind of out of everybody's control, as we were just waiting for it to go to the board, we were just able to kind of make sure things were moving forward, and as you say, trying to just be on top of everything. And, throughout the process, you have been, as I've already mentioned, exceptional, throughout this, actually kind of making, in some sense, my life a little bit easier as well. Because rather than having to try and chase somebody, you've just been kind of actioning and getting things done, which is fantastic. And, is certainly kind of allowing us to meet, your timeframes of, I think we were talking kind of about around March, April time, wasn't it?
Yes. April time.
So that would be then, kind of signing a contract in July and, kind of moving, and starting work around April, which, as you say, kind of meets that time frame that we put together. And I know that we built we kind of put the time frame and then we built a timeline together. And look, this is obviously going to be what we're going to do here. This is obviously going to be this stage. This is going to be this stage. So yeah, it's been good that we've been able to kind of just stick to that time frame.
Absolutely.
Which probably kind of takes us quite nicely on to that next section that I wanted to kind of go through with you, which is really kind of the preparation for this move. Because, I remember just in September, I was looking at things thinking, Christmas is ages away. And now here we are, and it's the 16th of December. And, it's one of, when we're recording this, and it's one of these where you just kind of sat there thinking, it's this time can go so quickly.
Yeah.
So how are you finding kind of preparing for this move itself? What are you and kind of putting in place at the moment?
So, talking about how time goes fast, I remember it was, I think, our first few conversations. You said, "Do you know it's Christmas is only 18 Saturdays away or 18 weeks away or something?" And I was like, "No, you must be kidding me." And it was, I think, August, September, sometime. And now we are like, Christmas is literally on the door now.
I've still not bought any presents.
Do you leave it to the last minute?
I try not to. I try not to, but this year I have been quite busy with work and a bit outside of work, and it's just kind of, as you say, time just sneaks up on you.
Absolutely, and time sneaking up on you. If no time faster than when you are planning a big move, because it is, and we are guilty of this a little bit until the APRA registration was sorted. Even though it might have been next day, we didn't know. Like, the APRA registration it's sorting, so it's going to still far away. Moving to Australia is still far away, so we kind of put off thinking about the logistics of the move and kind of planning it properly. And then when the APRA registration arrived, the next step is visa application, and now we are like, oh my god, it's visa application time now, and it might be it's a matter of a couple of months, 3 months now, so it's literally on our doorstep. But having said that, we were still doing this ever since we kind of started the process is APRA application. What we started doing was kind of gradually getting rid of stuff, because especially when you have a little child, you have so many stuff on your house, on your garage, on your everywhere on your storage, and that you have to start getting rid of stuff. So we have started doing that. In terms of planning the move in Australia, we've started looking at the suburbs, because initially when we go, we'll have to rent. So we're looking at areas where we'll preferably want to rent and live until we buy a place. So on the Australian side of things, we're looking at that, and my sister being there has been a huge help, where she's advising on which areas, which suburbs are good, better in terms of connectivity, closer to work and all of that. And on the UK side of things, obviously from work side of things, informing my employer, kind of working out the notice periods and all of that. And from home, luckily, we hadn't bought a house yet in the UK, so it made the process a lot easy, because selling a house while planning a big move all at the same time would have been, I think, a bit of a headache. So because we're just renting, made the process a lot easier. But yeah, now we are thinking about kind of shipping things over to Australia. Some of it, again, it's easy because my sister is there, so we can start doing it straight away. Things that we'll probably not need until summer, that can go. So we have started doing that, and every weekend now, one of the days in the weekend, that's the project. What are we doing today? And let's pick one out of the box, like a raffle out of the box, and sort something out today. So that's what we've been doing for the last few weeks in preparation of Christmas, our preparation for Christmas.
So, you want to take certain things with you. So it's kind of obviously looked into kind of shipping containers and how you can do that, how you can actually get things moved over.
So for us, it is, we will probably do, maybe a few big boxes, because we're not moving any like furnitures or anything, because we don't have anything that has sentimental value in terms of the furniture and things like that. It is mainly, the most important thing for me are my books, which needs to go with me everywhere I go. So I have lots of books, so there will be a big box of books that will go, and it has a lot of sentimental value for me, so I can't just get rid of them and buy new ones over there. So that's one of those things. And there are other bits, some bits from the kitchen, which again, either expensive or has some sentimental value, that needs to go. A lot of things, there's some of the things, toys and stuff, what is very important for Priscilla, our daughter, things that need to move. And even though I wouldn't say we have a lot of things that have sentimental value. When you have a child, there are lots of things, when you are about to get rid of them, you're like, oh no, but I don't want to get rid of this because there is some sentimental value to it now. So we have kind of like a few of those stuff. So we are not moving anything, major. So we don't need a shipping like a whole container or anything, but we will be moving maybe, a few big boxes over. So we are trying to go as light as we can.
Awesome. Because, like I say, it's such a big move. It is such a big move, and it's nice that you've been able to kind of just share, to our listeners a little bit around, what you guys have been planning and preparing for this move. As you say, you're very lucky to have your sister there already, who can kind of advise on, the areas and things and housing. But there's a lot to obviously consider. There's an awful lot to consider, and just running through obviously some of the kind of practical steps that you and Kanchan have been doing. It's certainly been obviously great for our listeners to kind of hear this.
And something I'd like to add, my employer on the interview, they kindly offered any sort of help with finding with housing, any kind of other support in terms of moving, whatever we need. Luckily, as we already established, my sister is there, so I wouldn't need a lot of those help. But if I needed one, I really appreciated it to kind of hear that right on the first day on the interview, that if we go through with this and you're moving, if you need any help, we are always here in terms of finding housing and all of that. And that makes a huge difference for especially, I suppose there are lots of people who will not have any family ties in Australia. So when you're moving for the first time, it is a daunting experience. I can recall from my experience moving to the UK for the first time when I had literally no one, and I had to just find an Airbnb and kind of from airport into an Airbnb in a country where I've never been, and then trying to figure everything out myself. Whereas having that support from the employer saying, if you need any help with all of this, we are here. Just give us a shout. That was amazing.
Yeah, most definitely. The employer that you've got is amazing. They are amazing, and they are so helpful. They're such a great bunch. They're such a great team, and I can't wait for you to join them and to obviously do a call, a FaceTime when you're with them, and I think you'll just kind of fit in so well to their culture they have already. But what part of this whole move now it's becoming more real? What part of it is becoming is like the most exciting? To you and Kanchan.
The most exciting part is, when your mind is already set on something and you have already decided on, okay, we are making a major change. The thing in itself, like kind of being there and starting that change is, I think that's the biggest thing that we're at the moment. We're just thinking, okay, when can we actually move and kind of start our life in Australia? Work wise, outside of work, everything. It is from all accounts, it is going to be amazing. That's what we've heard. But unless you have lived it yourself and you've already decided, because right now we feel like we are in a bit of a transition period. Obviously, we are in a transition period because we know we are moving soon, and the life here in the UK is going to be, it has a finite time now. It is going to be temporary, which means a lot of things you can't plan a lot ahead. So, for example, we would be booking for concerts or events in summer. We can't do it. So, a lot of those things, small things. It sounds like very small, silly things.
You can do them, just not in the UK.
Yeah, and we've been looking at it now. Looking at those like events coming up in, well, it is going to be winter, and which is going to be strange on other part. Is going to have a winter in the traditional summer. Yeah, but the thing we're most excited about is kind of starting our new life in Australia, starting work, and just being there at this moment, because we know we're going there. It just feels like we're biding time while we sort everything out at the moment. So we can't wait for the move.
No, good. It's nice to hear that. Really nice to hear that. And I think obviously, you say whilst you can't wait, what are the? We've obviously done a lot of talking, but what are the kind of differences that you are anticipating? Working in Australia to the NHS, for example. That kind of patient load, the admin, the hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so it I guess it is a bit hard to kind of answer accurately. Well, I've not experienced the Australian system, but from by hearing, what people have said, talking to colleagues and friends who have already been there and working, my understanding at this moment is that there's a lot less admin, as in, the admin is still there, but you're supported. So, you have support available to kind of go through that admin. So you're dealing with a lot less admin. The other thing that's quite different is you can, in a way, set your own time on like how long you're going to take for appointments. You can say when you want to start, when you want to finish, which is, in some ways possible in the NHS, but not to that level. Where when I was, when we talked about this with my employer, and they said we can start early morning at 7 and then finish at 1. Not possible in the NHS. So it was, a lot flexible, which helps with your, kind of work-life balance, especially when you have little children.
Yeah.
You want to you have to map your whole schedule and your life around them, and having that flexibility on picking up, your shifts as it suits you and kind of working your own schedule, that will definitely help with the work-life balance, which is a huge difference. And through no fault of the NHS GPs themselves, it is a situation where that flexibility, at least as things are, is not possible. And clinic appointment times, which can be kind of discussed and set for yourself within a reasonable limit, obviously. And weekend, so you can do weekend works, which has its own perks in terms of overtime and out of hour works. So the option of having that, which may mean that you can take a day off in the weekday, which is so again, everything for me rotates around that flexibility, and which ultimately I think is the most important thing for work-life balance, because once you are able to plan your work around your life rather than your life around your work, that kind of makes a huge difference and gives you that balance.
Yeah, I think it's what everybody works for, isn't it? And kind of lives for. Everybody wants to be able to, kind of work to live, not live to work.
Live to work.
And yeah, you're definitely going to get that in Australia. And as you just say, obviously the employer that you're joining, they've already said to you, you can. There's no set kind of shifts or shift patterns. It's just do what you kind of want to do, what you kind of need to do, what Kanchan needs to do, so that you guys can just enjoy life and really just enjoy life.
Yeah. And also, something I'd like to add, even within your work, a lot of GPs, we do develop a special interest. And, I have a special interest in menopause and women's health. Kanchan has a special interest in dermatology. And in dermatology and skin cancer. And we talked about this. And the thing that was, amazing was they were actively trying to see like how they can accommodate that, or how they can upskill us. Maybe it would be having some teaching sessions when that is organized by the pharmacy or pharmaceuticals, putting a lot of skin related teaching sessions, providing dedicated clinic, which again, when you're doing the work that is a special interest, that is a clinical interest, and you're getting to do and getting dedicated time to do a lot of it, it will mean that the work will feel less jarring. It will feel, more like you will be motivated to go to work, and that will ultimately help with work-life balance as well. Which I hope that is not just a practice in where I'm going to work, and it is for everyone else as well. But that was again an eye-opening experience, and which came up in the interview. So having that. And that is different from the NHS. And again, the NHS contracts are quite binding, and there are like things you can do and don't, and it's quite dictated from top downwards rather than locally decided. I think, which is a big difference. So it's not possible in the NHS. It's a huge difference, and makes a life of a GP a lot easier, a lot fulfilling, because you're doing the things within your area of work, which gives you satisfaction, which gives you pleasure, which gives you happiness.
Yeah. And I think you've just kind of said a key thing. Hopefully it's not the same, or hopefully it's like that for everybody. It's not just obviously your clinic, and it kind of is, but a big part of it is the client itself and the clinic that you go into. And this is obviously why we've, specifically, we specifically work with certain clients here at Menlo Park, and why, when we were looking into these different options, we were quite literally kind of, kind of almost matchmaking to a degree. What an existing GP of mine once called me like Cupid, which I'm still not too sure how I feel about that. But they were saying obviously that it's like matchmaking, trying to obviously actually find the right clinic for yourselves, and someone that's going to be supportive, somebody that's going to actually take on, the skills that you guys have, the way that you guys work, and the way that you guys want to work, and actually put it into practice. Not just say something and it's completely different. Actually physically put this into practice. And yeah, I know I've said this many times, but you are going to be in very well. You are in very, very good hands. Now you've mentioned about the good work-life balance that you guys are looking for. You've mentioned about obviously being able to upskill. You've mentioned about obviously, the motives for making this move. But when we think about the lifestyle, what kind of lifestyle are you and Kanchan kind of visioning? Once you've settled.
Um, it is a difficult question to answer, to be honest. I've thinking about it. So, in terms of the lifestyle, we want, with being parents, we have a child, a 3-year-old daughter. So a lot of our plans around lifestyles and everything that kind of floats around her. And one of the thing is we wanted her to kind of be around, the extended family, around her cousins, around her grandparents, which will be, much easier when we are in Australia. So being a lot closer to the family. And also the weather plays a big factor in the lifestyle, because you can just on an off day you can go to the beach or go wherever, even a cafe outside in the sunshine is a lot better than the British winter. So it is our lifestyle. I guess it is a life that is financially stable, which is we close to the family, where we have a lot of flexibility to kind of we do travel a lot. That is very important for both Kanchan and I. We try to do at least a few trips every year somewhere, and that is important. And I think this works provides that flexibility as well, because you can kind of pool your hours in a few weeks and then take an extended break, and you can kind of work your schedule again. And everything ultimately comes back to that. I think the flexibility when we talk about work. So, I think all of those things is kind of all those boxes are ticked by the choice or the decision that we have made.
Yeah, no, it certainly sounds it. As you say, family, sunshine, beach, enjoying the outdoors, the better, financially as a family. Yeah, everything is going to be ticked.
And one thing, when I went to Australia, one of the things I absolutely love is going to the beautiful wineries, in the countryside. So that is going to be a part of the lifestyle as well.
But I guess obviously, kind of last, a couple of bits obviously from you really would be, maybe some, and you have actually shared it quite a lot through this episode, but maybe just some advice that you would give to GPs kind of considering, this move. What advice would you give somebody that's maybe at the early stage of thinking about this relocation?
I think rather than advice, I would say something that I did and which might work for you. I think that's a better way to put it, because I don't know if I'm the right person to advise anyone. But what I would say is, and what worked for me is, if you are considering Australia, kind of what I did was I built a checklist on what are the things important for me in life, in terms of work, in terms of my life outside of work, my family, friends, the rest of it. So, what are the different aspects of my life, and is Australia, and doing the pros and cons basically. And I put things on the pros list, I put things on the cons list, And why, when I said when I'm considering Australia, my question was, which we do in medical research, the null hypothesis. What I did was, why should why should I not go to Australia? Was my question. So, and then I started working from there because of the financial side of things. No, I should still go to Australia because it pays better. Whether Australia family, Australia, so all of them, everything was pointing me towards that. And it might be different. I'm not saying it is for everyone. For some it might not be, but the only way of knowing is to kind of see, when you put everything in your life, all the aspects of your life, base and see, is Australia better suited to you? And if it is, then once you decide, I would say, once you decide, don't delve on it, because sometimes we are a victim of paralysis by analysis, where we plan and plan and plan, and it just we're spending more time, or losing more time, whereas in that maybe a few months or a year time, you'd have already been in Australia and been in a place where you would eventually love it. So rather than that, once you've decided, it's better to kind of take the step, take a leap of faith. There are lots of people who have done this, and I've not come across them up until now. And I'm not saying 100% there's a 100% success rate, but I've not come across anyone who has said, oh, they've regretted the move, and which is kind of really encouraging to me. Before I made the move, because I've not found a single person who has said, oh, don't come to Australia, or I've regretted the move, I'm coming back to the UK. Not heard of it, unless they have significant family ties and they need to come back. That's a different scenario. But once you've decided, take a leap of faith, speak to Thomas, and he'll be able to advise you.
In the space now for, like I say, many, many, many years, and likewise, I've never found somebody that's not enjoyed it. There's been people that have had to come back due to elderly parents or something, but there's never been anybody that's not got a good word to say about it, who's they kind of regretted the decision that they've made, and I know that yourself and Kanchan are going to be very, very happy. I'm very, very
we're
happy
really looking forward to
moving
it.
forward. And as I've said to you many times, I'm honoured to be a part of this journey with you, and I just can't wait to for you guys to be jumping on that plane and getting off and just starting work, starting to experience a lifestyle, and just obviously telling me how good it is, and that invite to come and join you later on down the line.
And maybe we should catch up and do a follow-up episode after I move.
Maybe we should. That would be a great idea. Thomas and Mandeep Part 2. But honestly, it's just want to say thank you, Mandeep, for jumping on and taking the time to just share your insights and your experiences with our listeners, because I think this has been really, really valuable for our listeners to actually hear why you wanted to move, but also just your experience through the process. It's been really, really valuable, so thank you very much. I think there's kind of looking back at some of the kind of the key takeaways for our listeners, obviously kind of as Mandeep's mentioned, kind of start the process early, make sure you do your research, utilize the support, like myself, feel free to reach out, and there are times you're going to be patient, but that's fine. That's what we expect, and everything that you hear about obviously how good the work-life balance is, how much money you can make, how much better your life will actually be, and actually falling in love with being a GP again. It is true. It is really achievable. So, again, Mandeep, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for inviting me on. I'm really glad to kind of get a chance to share this, because a lot of the time when people are trying to understand it, it's for someone who's still going through the process, just to hear from them. Hopefully, I've shared things that kind of helps people kind of understand the process a little bit better and answer some of the questions. But really thank you for inviting me on.
No, it's my pleasure. So thank you very, very much. And I just want to obviously invite our listeners to listen to our other podcasts. Obviously, do reach out should you have any questions. My details obviously will be below, and do stay tuned for future episodes, future topics. And again, thank you for listening, and thank you very much, Mandeep.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank Kanchan for your time as well.
I will too.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye now.